Serious, what is your workplace horror story? Please do like, comment and subscribe for more juicy content. Was working a graveyard shift at a Comcast, may have been AT&T at the time, call center. There were TVs everywhere with movies on, as there weren't many calls at midnight. Suddenly all of the TVs shift to a channel change, down to one of the paid porn channels. My co-workers and I spot this, and start chanting click it click it. The click goes through, then the do you accept the charges comes up. We chant again and wonder of wonders it goes through. Suddenly there's a full spread on every television in the call center. We spot two managers running full tilt across the cubicles, and shortly after it got shut off. Apparently the security guard thought the TV at his station was just for him. I was the boss and some guy wasn't paying attention and had his arm on the bar behind him on the forklift he was backing up. He backed up right into a container and all but severed his arm. Just a small flap of skin was holding it on. He ran in the building spurting blood all over and I ran over and stopped him, sat him down and got one of the guys to get me some stuff for an improvised tourniquet. I held his severed arm under mine and I squeezed the upper arm to slow the flow until I could get the tourniquet on and tight. All the while I was getting covered in his blood from head to toe. I finally got it stopped and sat there trying to keep him calm while the paramedics were on the way. After they took over, I asked the firemen that accompanied them if they could blast me off with the fire hose. They blasted all the blood off but my clothes were ruined. I sat outside until I dried and then went home and showered well and threw the stained clothes away. I got dressed and went back to work to help the crew clean up the blood and toss the chair he was in the trash. I could taste his blood the rest of the day. It even got up my nose. I didn't notice until I went home again but my mustache and goatee were stained from the blood too. I had to shave clean. They were able to reattach his arm but it never worked right again. He went on permanent disability afterwards. Formerly worked at a residential group home. My wife and I, context, while we were employees my wife was pregnant and kicked in the lower abdomen by a client. Suffered a miscarriage. The director and myself had a disagreement, he was a narcissist. We told him that we would like to adopt a client, 5-year-old, out of the group home. He did not like that because when the clients are adopted or moved the facility loses funding. He resorted to yelling at me and looked my wife square in the eyes and said how about next time you get pregnant, don't let it die? Think you could do that? If so, we won't have to have conversations like this. First time I ever spent the night in jail, and the first time he ever had a broken nose and eye socket. Worth it. Long story. I worked in a nursing home kitchen for a month back in 2017, thankfully it was a temporary job as I was on summer break from university. There were so many things that were up with that place, and I kept on questioning my boss, the head cook, and the care home manager about many things. Firstly, raw meat was stored on the top shelf in the fridge. So unhygienic. Not to mention that some of the kitchen staff had very poor personal hygiene too. I once saw one of my colleagues drop a boiled egg on the floor. To my horror, he put it straight back on the plate and gave it to a resident. That's before we even get to some of the carers. I knocked on residents' doors when I entered a resident's room. One of the senior carers pulled me up about that, but I told him to do one. Thankfully the head cook had my back about that. Once I noticed that one of the stair banisters was loose in the dementia unit, which many residents used, and mentioned it to the maintenance guys. When they didn't do anything, I went straight to the care home manager to demand that it got done. She managed to turn the subject around from a health and safety issue, to me losing my job if I didn't shut up and toe the line. I was just speechless. Oh, and the activities coordinator was one of the most horrible people I'd ever met. She was in charge when the manager wasn't around, but she was even worse than the manager. She acted so nice to the residents and their families, but she treated all the carers and the kitchen staff like dog shit and used to go on frequent power trips. I remember on one evening shift, one of the nurses was unhappy because she thought I had served dessert portions too small. No issue, I offered to fix it. The nurse wasn't having that and got the activities coordinator, and 5 minutes later she gave me an absolute dressing down in front of all my colleagues. I must admit, I nearly walked out. But I didn't want to screw the guys in the kitchen over either as they were already short-staffed as it was. It was at that point that I decided, I'm never coming back to this place once this shift is over. The head cook texted me that evening after I'd finished work, and basically told me that whilst he liked me, I was not welcome back at all. Apparently I'd pissed off the higher-ups for talking back and being disrespectful. I had a feeling it was coming anyway though, and went back to university to complete my degree. Every time I have a bad day at my current job, I always think at least I'm not at the nursing home. Thankfully one of the kitchen staff who I had always got on with, quit his job not long after that and reported the nursing home to the council as an anonymous whistleblower. The council sent an inspector to the home and they noticed everything that was wrong. Apparently the care home manager got a massive fine, yet somehow still kept her job. To my amusement though, she complains in the town's Facebook group about being short-staffed.